Hi everyone, this video is designed to show you how to create a course in Moodle at Walkham Hills High School from scratch, and we'll go through a handful of the options you have available when making a new course. First of all, head to Moodle. I need you to go to the main homepage, which shows all of the course categories. To find that, if you're not there, you can click on the home button here and it'll take you to this page automatically. Then click on the faculty that you belong to. For this example, I'm going to pick technology. Here it shows a list of existing courses. Now, when we're creating a course, you may actually want it to go inside an already existing category that belongs to your faculty. So for example, if I was making a course designed for Year 12 students, I would click on the Year 12 category here. For this example, I'm just going to create one in the root of the technology faculty. So I'm already there, and to begin doing a course creation, we're going to click on the More icon at the top right and add a new course. That's going to take me to the Add a New Course page. It does look a little busy to begin with, but once we start going through a lot of the options, it'll make a bit more sense. If for any reason you've got a permission denied, or you don't see that icon to add a new course, just log a job and we will try and get those permissions sorted ASAP for you. Alright, so for starters, I need to give my course a name, and that's that first option here, course full name. For this one, I'm just going to call it Andrew's Test Course. If at any time you're not sure about what an option is, they all have this question mark icon beside them, and it gives a little bit more information about what that option does. So, for example, I have this little exclamation mark here that says required next to course short name. If I'm not sure what a course short name is, I can click on the question mark and it tells me that it's the name that is displayed in areas with limited space. So for example, on our side, it's going to pop up in the bar at the top here that shows the the directory you're in, and it makes it a little bit easier to navigate at times. So I'm going to call it ATC course. This can be whatever suits your course. Now let's go through some more of these options. We've got, actually I mentioned, now that I've filled in those first two, I could actually create the course right now. They are the three required options for it, but I do suggest going through some more stuff to make sure that it suits what you need. The course start date is when you want the course to be available to students. By default, it's normally the next day at midnight. You can make it start immediately, so I could change that to the time that it is now and the date, or you can make it for a date in the future. So you might want to do that because you want to set aside some time to get your course set up before students are able to access it, or you're creating a unit of work in advance that you don't want the students to access quite yet. It also is important, if you do choose the weekly format, which I'll go through later on, that your course start date is set correctly for when you want the weekly format to begin, because it will base its dates on that later. If it doesn't make sense now, I'll show you an example of that later on, because we haven't quite got to course formats yet. Course visible or visibility is whether or not the course will be available to students to see. So by default it's on, or I can hide it manually. If that's the case, the course start date will still be set, but if I have it set to hide, students still won't be able to see it. So this is kind of your manual toggle to turn that off regardless of the date. I can add a description for the course. This will appear on the course title. It can also be used when you are searching. So if you need to search for a course, it's going to go through the description of each of the courses, and it can help make yours a little bit easier to find. So I'm going to say this is a course for creating a new course inside Moodle. This is for getting started. You don't need to fill that in though, it's not a required section. You do also have a course image where you can set a background for the tile that will appear on the course categories. It's up to you, you don't need to add anything in there. Most of the time I do not. but it is entirely up to you. Now, course format is an important section because it's how our course will display to students. The format, the first option there, is the most important one. If I hit that question mark, it gives a brief overview of some of the formats there, but I'm going to go through them with you. The built-in ones are topics format and weekly format. Weekly format is designed to have work added in a per week format. So if you want to set your course on a timeline, you can add content that needs to be completed each week or accessed. It becomes a little more spread out because you have to add things by weeks. Topics format is very similar to that, but it adds a heading per topic rather than a week. I personally prefer topic as you're not locked into a time frame, but it's really dependent on how you want the course to appear to students. We also have some newer options, such as the Edwiser course format and the Tiles format. I'll show you some examples of those in a little bit. We do also have the single activity format. That's if you want your course to be dedicated to one thing only. So if it's a really important submission or something like that, you can actually create a dedicated course to it. Now the next option, the number of sections, is just simply how many you want to be created blank at the beginning of your course. So when you first create it. If I was doing a weekly format and I was doing it for the entire semester, I might choose 20 weeks because there are 20 weeks in a semester. Again, entirely up to how you want your course to be displayed to students. I'm going to go through a couple of examples now because it's going to be a lot easier to understand when you can actually see them. So if I pop over to here, this is the topics format. So this is a course that's already been created and has some content in it, and you can see it creates these blank sections, topic 7, 8, 9, 10 for example down the bottom. These ones have stuff in there and they're just labeled topic 1 to all the way through to 10, and you add your content to each of those as you desire. The weekly format appears like this, where it automatically generates a week label structure and adds all of those dates based on the course start date we added earlier. So it'll work out the weeks for you, put them in automatically, and then you can add content below each of those week sections. This is the Edwiser course format. You can see it's quite similar to topics, except it's a little more spread out. Everything is a little bit bigger and easier to see, and it gives you the options of creating an activity section separate. That can make it easier to consolidate all your quizzes or submissions later on. Finally, the tiles format. Now this one's quite unique compared to the others. It creates a heading tile for each of those sections and hides everything underneath them. This is really good if you want to make a clean layout when you have a large amount of content that you don't want it to display in a list. So I can click on these tiles and then see the content beneath them without needing to see it all in one go. Alright, we'll head back to our course creation page. Excuse me. I'm going to leave mine at the topics format, and I'm going to set it to 3 different topics. Hidden sections here is just that if I hide a section later on, it's going to be completely invisible. Or I can choose that students will see that there was a section, but it is no longer available. This can be useful if you're making changes and you want students to know that you've moved that section to hidden on purpose. Now, the rest of these options I'm going to leave as their default, and I'm going to pick Save and Display, and that's going to take me straight into my new course page after it's created. So I now have a new course here, freshly created, called Andrew's Test Course. And this is, for the most part, sorry, I'm just going to turn edit mode off because that is the default. This is how students will see it by default. They're going to see each of your headings and things like that. As you add content, it'll obviously fill out a little bit more. When we're looking at this, this is a great way to make sure that we know how students are going to view the course. It's coming back to this page and making sure we have that edit mode at the top right off, so we can get an idea of what they're going to see and how it makes sense for them. One of the most important parts of our course is going to be having students access it though. So students do that by enrolling in your course. and the default way is for students enrolling themselves. So our Moodle is automatically locked to only students who go to Borkham Hills High School. So you don't have to worry about any other students from other schools popping in and viewing any of your content. However, there are also times that you might want your course limited to only students in your class, rather than all students at Borkham Hills. You also have options of disabling enrolments altogether. For example, once your class is already there and you want to turn that off. So all these options are available at the top here under Participants. This first page will show you who's already in your course. By default, the head teacher of the faculty that you're in is already in the course. But what I want to do up here is I want to click on the drop down Enrolled Users and select Enrollment Methods. And this is going to show the ways that students can access your course. The top one, Manual Enrollments, is if you want to add a student to your course on their behalf. That's very time consuming. I don't usually use that. I would get students to enroll themselves. The next option, Guest Access, is disabled by default. You can see that by the slash through the eye icon there. The category enrollments is that head teacher access I talked about just before. But the main one we're looking at is self-enrollment student. This is how students will generally access your course. If I click on the little cog here, the settings button, that's going to give me the options for self-enrollment. And here is where we can set an enrollment key. So that's where you're going to enter a code, if you like, that students will need to enter to access your course. So just like in Google Classroom where you can get a class code generated, this is your enrollment key that you must provide to students for them to enroll in your course, if you choose to go that way. Another section here is also allow new self-enrollments. So that might be once you've hit all of your students have enrolled in your class and you no longer want anyone else to access it, whether or not you have an enrollment key, you can set this to no. That will now disable that self-enrollment option and nobody else can enter your course, whether they have that enrollment key or not. There are also some other fun options here, like max enrolled users. So I can set a limit on our course of how many students can enter. So once you hit, say, 20 students, if that's the number you put in, the first 20 can enroll, no issue, but once that number's reached, no other students can enroll. Right, I'm going to go back to our course page now, and I'm going to cover a couple of things in our introduction video, but there'll be more videos later on with more information. So one of the most common things you might be doing in a course is adding a file or an activity. But before we can do that, I mentioned the edit mode button a little bit earlier on. This is the button that we need to press to say I want to make changes to my course rather than just viewing it. So if I hit that edit mode, a whole bunch of options will be displayed now. Again, it can look a little bit overwhelming to begin with, but once we start going through some of these things, it'll make more sense. For starters, I'll just show you that each topic comes with a label by default, topic 1, 2, and 3. But with just this pencil here, you can feel free to label it whatever you want. So my first course option is going to be auto repair. That's it. You now have a new label for that section that makes more sense for your course and for your students. Now under auto repair, I'd like to add a resource. So I have a document or a file that I want to add. I'm going to click on add an activity or resource, and I'm going to select file. Again, it brings up another window with a few different options here. For starters, I need to give it a name. So I'm going to call it Repair Guide. And then I can click on the upload button here in the middle, and I can choose what file I want to put there. You can log into your Google Drive, and you can have access to all of your files in your Google Drive as well. Or if you select upload a file, you can choose a file from your computer. So I've got a document here that I'd like to add, and I can say upload this file. Pops up in this box here, tells me what it is, how big it is, and I can save and return to course once I'm happy with that. So now I have that document there called Repair Guide under the heading Auto Repair that all students can see. I can rename it here with the pencil if I need to, or I can leave it as is. Of course, that's quite a long way around adding a file. If you've already got stuff on your computer and you wanted to add lots, that can be quite time consuming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that file. It's gone now. And I want to show you a quick way you can add files to your course by dragging and dropping. So if I bring up this folder here that has that same document, I can drag it here into my course and it automatically creates it and adds it there. It will create it with the name of the document itself rather than anything else, so you don't get a chance to set it when you drag and drop, but of course you can change it now that it's in there. This is how you will get files and resources available to your students. That's as far as we'll go for this video. I suggest creating a course, playing around with it, you're choosing some of the different options, trialing different formats, just to familiarize yourself with Moodle. There are other videos available to show you how to add different types of activities. So for example, a Turnitin submission or using the lockdown browser.